information. It's that the story is no longer
Hey
building to
everyone, it's me,
anything.
Venice the
Instead,
hedgehog.
it's just showing how
Today
horrible
I'm
the
here with
system
a
is, how plenty of people seem to know it and go along with it because of the power it gives them, and how ultimately none of these people appear to be oppressed, given that they can basically do whatever they want as long as they protect their white charges. I'm sure that's not Thomas or Randolph's point, but that's how it comes across. There are too many people in power for it to be believable that they're being oppressed, especially not with this inept jackass. That's the second problem. Supposedly he's got total control, but he's getting punked by a teenager acting on a whim. This is supposed to be the big bad, but he's not scary, threatening, or even capable. When your main antagonist is a pushover, you've failed. He's not a threat if he can't act without using his pawns to do everything for him. If this is supposed to be the evil white man in charge, this nigga should be Aizen Sosuke, not Dick Dastardly. When he shows up, he should be the most badass person there, someone no one, not even Raymond Dales, would dare challenge. Instead, Raymond threatens the dude, quote, "Do you remember what I promised you? If anything else happened to her?" Because it seems like maybe you forgot. Aizen would have dropped this dude to his knees just powering up and said some bogus shit like, "That was just cracking a seal. What would happen if I opened it?" No, instead we get this shit. A racist on his shoulder. Zippity-doo-dah. And look, I knew it would eventually go there. I said that in my first video about the series. It's just that they were doing so well, I hope that they would stay on the path of good storytelling and not let their politics get in the way. Because politics can easily ruin a good story, and it's usually when the author can't or won't balance it. We've only seen one side of the story, not just Spencer's, but specifically only the side of the magicians. We have no idea what their charges think or if they even know what's going on. It's not even clear if the broader world is aware. Now, this wouldn't have been a problem if the story had stayed with Spencer and Raymond's conflict, but the moment that it turned into "we was Kangs," it created the problem everybody had with the comic book Black. How in the hell are these people being oppressed if they're so powerful? We're 10 issues in now, 3 issues after the whole all white people are evil reveal, and there's still no explanation for it. These people can literally do whatever they want. Different people have greater access to magic than others. Some of them, like Spencer, appear to have a little problem defying, bending, or even breaking the rules. So how are they oppressed? How is this happening? Why would Raymond be remotely afraid of White Boy when he can easily take down multiple magicians? A good storyteller would catch this and try to answer some of the questions so the story makes sense, but Brandon Thomas and Carrie Randolph let their politics take control so the story goes off the rails. And I'm not the only one who noticed. In the letters pages, several people brought up the same point. Now I'm going to give Thomas and Randolph credit for publishing critical comments. Of course, they think they've got the best clapbacks, so that's why they publish them, but all they really do is show that they're racist. One guy, a black dude in the 60s, comments about how the Black Lives Matter banner splattered all over issue 8 is a problem because BLM is a divisive movement. But Brandon says, quote, "I don't see how Black Lives Matter credibly be accused of dividing and tearing down anything other than the reality that black and brown people can be murdered in the street, or their homes, or imaginary and perceived threats without accountability." You mean like all those black and brown people murdered in the streets when they looted, rioted, and torched dozens of cities? Or the ones who assaulted and killed white people because they were white? Or the ones who had politicians pay their bail after these idiots were arrested for vandalism and assault? Because if ever there was a time when black and brown people would be murdered for imaginary and perceived threats, it would be when they were going around actually assaulting and killing people. And that didn't happen. Of course, Brandon has no problem understanding divisiveness when the commenter brings up the bullshit about the all-white ancestry and Trump being a part of it. Then Brandon completely understands how supporting a movement that caused the mob to descend on a place to vandalize it, he's talking about the Capitol, could be perceived as divisive. That's because Brandon thinks Trump is racist, which leads him to say shit like this, quote, "His entire platform is white supremacy, specifically white male supremacy." You can't reason with that kind of stupid, and the same goes for Carey's response. He says, quote, "White supremacy, not white people, please note the difference, has been a primary antagonist of this book from issue number 1. Yet there is no difference. This is the same game feminists love to play with the patriarchy and men. They say patriarchy, and they're clearly talking about men, but when they're called on it, they claim they're talking about the system. No one buys this bullshit. We all know that the patriarchy really means men, and white supremacy really means white people. We know this because when you talk long enough, that's where you always go. It's not in anyone's heads, it's coming from you. It always goes back to you talking about the people, not the system. Which is why these two attack a white reader who points out the same flaws. The reader says that the original metaphor was pretty obvious, but replacing it with a gaggle of racist white people insulted readers and was confusing because race was never specifically mentioned in the story, which is true. He also makes this point, quote, Do you really think many white people think the way these people do? Yes, he does. But Brandon is smart enough to realize that actually saying that will cost him the few readers he has. So he says, quote, "Do I think many white people belong in the ancestry scene? I wouldn't say many, but I'd say more than enough." Remember what I just said? That it always goes back to the people. There you go. And by the way, Brandon, that's racist. There's no other word for it. That's racist. And we know this because if you said it about any other group of people, it would be considered racist. Imagine if Uncle Bad Touch said this about his Super Predator comic. Imagine if someone asked Biden if many black people think this way, and his response was, I wouldn't say many, but I would say more than enough. It's racist. And so is Brandon. He goes on a rant trying to defend his racism, arguing that other people think it too, so that makes it right, because there's no way a consensus could possibly be wrong. And then he attacks the reader more by saying that the book wasn't meant to be neutral or safe, and there's a bunch of books with white characters, so the reader should set aside his feelings about being labeled evil because of his race and just read the book. No. You don't get to insult your readers because you believe racist bullshit. Let's be honest, ain't no black people reading this book. There's me, that 60-year-old dude, and 5 other niggas reading this book. Everybody else is white, and it's a really bad idea to write a story where the point of your story is that your readers are evil because of their race. That is not what happens with books with white characters. Not at all, not even close. If you think any comic books sold in stores today are written with that overt or covert purpose of claiming all non-white people are evil, you're fucking delusional and racist. Both Brandon and Carrie know this, which is why Carrie says to this man, "Why would our cartoonish bad guys make you feel personally insulted?" For the same reason you'd be insulted if every black character in a comic was a cartoonish villain, you dipshit. Isn't this your complaint? That black people are treated unfairly and turned into cartoonish villains? You know what you're doing. You clearly intended for white people to have this response. That's your point, both as you and Brandon admit. You want white folks to be upset. Why are you acting like you wasn't doing that? I have astigmatism in both eyes. I can barely see 3 inches in front of my face. I can still see this shit. This is the game these people love to play. I wasn't talking about you, so why are you offended? As you proceed to talk about the person's entire group, and then have the nerve to say you hope people will still read the book. No, they done, son. If the on-the-nose ancestry scene and the BLM shit wasn't a turnoff, your responses would definitely lose you readers. This is the problem with caring more about your message than how your message comes across. You're so concerned about making your point that you missed that you already made it, and now you've gone way farther than you needed to go, revealing yourselves to be racist. You want to confront something? Confront your own biases. Confront your own worldview. You want people to see things through your eyes? Try seeing it through theirs. I know you think you do, but you don't. You don't understand other people, and you don't care, and that's why your book is failing. It hasn't completely failed, but it's getting there. I would dial it back so I could save what was left of a good story. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.
Last time, the last time, and the last time, many people said our plot, official kid got crushed to death. God, the man is sick. I'm different about saying.
I saw that Umbrella Guy's video about this article, and I want to throw in my 2 cents. The article is an interview of Bordertown writer Eric Esquivel by Isabel Sofia Dieppe. It's like reading thousands of words from the blissfully self-unaware. Neither of these two know what they're talking about, but they're pretty damn certain that they're right anyway. It's an amazing read. I'm not going to go through the whole article because I can only handle so much stupid and racism, and this is like a BLT of SJW fuckery with cheese. I'm not kidding. Here's the opening line. The opening line. Quote, "Borders are imaginary boundaries that many modern politicians use to discern the humanity of a person." You have to have gone to college to say something that stupid. Borders are boundaries created to distinguish one independent state from another. That's it. This land is mine, that land is yours, and that land over there is open to whoever kills the natives first. That's it. No politicians are using borders to determine who's a person and who's not. That's your ridiculous spin because you can't handle that some people have this bizarre idea that they belong to a sovereign nation and want people to respect their laws. Jesus, this is the first line and we've already reached peak stupid. But wait, this is an interview. So when Isabel goes, "None are as uninformed as me," Eric goes, "Hold my taco, chica." He says, "It's not just about the physical borders between the US and Mexico. It's about the borders we put up between each other. These fake ideologies, like I'm left and you're right. These fake boundaries that are man-made concepts, and even things that we divide between like gender and stuff like that. It seems like a lot of folks are benefiting from drawing these imaginary lines between each other. You hypocritical mother. That's your entire book. The whole thing, drawing lines between people, making one group inherently bad and everyone else inherently good. That's literally what you've done for 3 issues. Seriously, there's not a single good white person in your book. Not one. Every white person with a speaking role, just one word balloon, is racist. Here's a good example from the 3rd issue. One of the girls, Amy, burns sage in her school and sets off the water sprinklers. The devil, I mean her straight white male vice principal, calls her into the office where he immediately, literally as soon as the door closes, starts macking on her. Seriously, look at the screen. One panel, he's chastising her. Next panel, there are easier ways to get my attention. This is how all white people are presented in Border Town. They're all scum. Now, so are the rest of the characters. Everyone in the book is a shitty person, with maybe the exception of Quinto. It's kind of like GTA. The difference, though, is that in GTA, no one is presented as the hero. They're all bad. Some are just less bad than others. In Border Town, the shitty people are made out to be heroes. They're virtuous not because of what they do or their actual character, but because of what groups they belong to. Now you can have people with questionable morals be your lead. Look at GTA. Look at Red Dead Redemption. But all those characters are shown as having some warped sense of morality because of their character. If you took all the lead characters in Border Town and made them white, they'd be the villains. That's how horrible they are. And those are the lines Eric drew all on his own. And those imaginary lines aren't limited to the book. Eric's Twitter feed reads like the ravings of a fanatic wrapped in identity politics lingo. So really just the ravings of a fanatic. He comes off as racist in his tweets, in his books, and in this interview. He also comes out as completely full of shit. He says about the infamous I'm half Mexican panel, where resident conniving douche Julieta tells Frank, the main character, that he's Mexican and Irish and American, all 100% at the same time. Quote, every day, I get a tweet from someone that says they were teary-eyed reading that panel. Stop.
Stop that.
Stop. You lying motherfucker. Stop. That never ever happened. Ever. Nowhere on the face of this planet, not even in your dreams, did that happen. This is shit you made up to feel better about yourself. Probably because you get hangups for being, wait for it, part Irish and Mexican. Oh, who didn't see that coming? Who didn't think Eric wrote himself as a hero of his own comic? You could feel it, couldn't you? You just knew that Eric, like most SJWs, had to really make this about himself. It's so shallow, so very shallow to do this. And it explains why Frank, who's a complete unlikable asshole, is presented as the good guy. If Frank is Eric, then this is Eric living out his power fantasy. Here's the thing. If you want to write an autobiography, just write an autobiography. Don't mix it in with fantasy and then try to pass it off as a horror story when 90% of the story is about you working out your biracial problems. Now, let's take a wild guess at why the white kids would be presented as villains. Just guess. You got it? Okay, so it turns out that Eric grew up in Arizona. He's in his 30s, so you can imagine that in the late 80s and early 90s Arizona, he was probably the odd one out, both being Mexican